So let's look now at how the Affordable Care Act is financed and how it holds together. Just like everything else, there's a story behind it. And this one is particularly important in terms of understanding how these pieces of the law fit together. So I invite you to take a look at this slide called ACA Coverage and Financing. What you will see over on the left column are the titles of the law. Titles 1 through 9, the key substantive titles. And we talked about titles 1 through 5. We will mention a little bit about some of the others. But if you look at this column here, this shows you the number of folks who are estimated to be covered under Title 1 and Title 2, because those are the two titles that expand coverage to prior uninsured. And by the way, these are the estimates from the Congressional Budget Office that were made in March of 2010, just as the law was signed. They cover the period 2010 to 2019 because CBO always looks at estimates over a 10-year window. And so CBO in 2010 estimated that 16 million Americans would get covered through the expansions in Title I, and 16 million would get covered under the coverage expansions in Title II by 2019, or 32 million Americans. Now we know, because of the Supreme Court decision, that Title I's number will be higher, probably up around 20 to 22 million, and Title II, the Medicaid expansion, will be lower because that's an option now for states, and not all states will do it. And so the estimate is that may be down somewhere around 12 million, okay? But the overall coverage will not be that dissimilar. The next column talks about where the money is spent on the law. So the net cost of the ACA in that 10-year window, 2010 to 2019, is about $950 billion. And what you can see in this is that most of the money in the law is spent on Title I and Title II. Not a big surprise. It costs money to cover people, and everything else is pretty small. You can see with Title III, that $54 billion, most of that is the cost of shrinking that Medicare donut hole that I referenced earlier. But this is where the money goes. We're paying for Title I and Title II, Medicaid and the private expansion. So now we look at this last column, and what we can see is, where does the money come from to pay for it? It's a little bit more diverse. There was a political decision made at the very start of the political process in early 2009 of developing the ACA. The political decision was, we're going to spend all this money, and the law is going to be completely self-financed. It's going to pay for itself. And the Congressional Budget Office, in their analysis, said, yes, it does. And how does it pay for itself? So just like in the second column, there are two vital titles, in this column, there are two vital titles. There's Title III, those changes to Medicare to reduce the rate of growth over 10 years, and Title IX, the revenue increases. By the way, what's in this figure, this 437? So there are new payroll taxes, Medicare payroll taxes on high-income wage earners. Who's a high-income wage earner, you might want to know? It's an individual making more than $200,000 a year, or a household or a family making more than $250,000 a year. And the new payroll tax is an increment over that number. So you don't pay on your $250, you pay for whatever it is over the $250. That's estimated, by the way, of this $437 billion to be about $200 billion. Also in Title IX, there are new taxes on drug companies, on medical device makers and medical supply companies, and also on pharmaceutical companies. So altogether, these are the big items. And so you look at these two together and you see essentially a pattern that the Title III and Title IX provide the financial resources to pay for Title I and Title II. And that's financially how the law holds together. Now, of course, if we looked from rather 2010 to 2019, we looked at 2014 through 2023, all these numbers would be higher. However, the fundamental equation in terms of the bottom line will be the same. The Affordable Care Act, not by a large amount, but the Affordable Care Act actually lowers the federal deficit and does not increase it. It is a self-financed law, and that's a fundamental point to understand about how the ACA holds together and what its impact will be.